the fourth of our series of videos on Meniscus Analytics platform, where we're creating a simple IoT type application. So in this video we're going to go through adding a few more fields into the entities that we already created, and then we're going to use some of the properties of those fields to allow us to aggregate data at a high level. So we're going to add some region information into those entities, so east and west region, and then we're going to create a calculation that will aggregate all that data upwards. So it means that we can very easily create aggregated data for hundreds of thousands of meters. So the first thing we're going to do is, and a lot of this information was detailed in the very first video, so I'm going to open up the file that we created right at the beginning in our CSV file, and I'm just going to add in a couple of new fields. So this is as easy as it gets to adding fields into map. So we want to create a new manager, and we're going to call him James is the manager in this one, and James is manager in there, and James is manager there, and let's just call Jenny is manager in those for those two entities. And then the let's call it east, west, and the other two will be west as well. So that's how easy it is to create a new entities, or add new properties into entities. So we'll save that, and we can now import that file back using the web client again. So that's successful, and if we can now go back into the meters, we can see that those properties have been added. So James is the manager there, and James and Jenny will be that one. So that's how we've very easily added properties into the application. What we're now going to do is we're going to create a new entity model for region. So we're going to look to aggregate the data up at region level. So we're going to create this as an IoT test, and again all of this was edited and created in the first video. And it is a region, we're going to call it region as our entity type. So if I go into here, we've now created a region entity model, and I'm just going to enter here, go and create a new group for our region template. And again, all this was enough of the very first video. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add in here a new calculated item. This is going to be called total consumption. And what this is this is where we're going to do the aggregated consumption for all those entities that have a property of east or west. So I'm just going to show you a simple calculation. So I'm just opening up Notepad. So what we're going to do, so let me just show you. If I come down here, most of this is already set, but what we have to do is we have to enter values for the initialization expression, and then in the values. So what are the values that we're going to put into this item? So the initialization is going basically we are going to define a variable called R1, and it's going to be using this particular string. So it's going to be looking for the entity model, and it's going to be getting any items that are in the area called, or the property called region, which is the one that we just added a minute ago. So I'm not going to go into detail about how this is configured, this particular string. We're going to go into that in more detail in additional videos in the future. So if I just take that and I populate that into the initialization expression, so that's my R1 expression, and then in the R2 expression, in the actual value expression, I'm just going to add in this particular bit of code. So this says aggregate across using R1, and it's going to aggregate on a sum basis. So effectively this will be looking to use that region property that we added in the entities and aggregating any where they are similar, where they match the regions that we're going to set up in a minute. So that's my total consumption meter. So that's now created. And to create my regions, so we've created an entity, we've created the template, I'm going to set up another CSV import file. So this is one that we very similar to the one we had for the entities, and I'm going to just create two new regions for east and west. I'm going to create some properties for start and ends, or nighttime start calculation and night end calculation, and I'll show you why in a minute. And that's effectively my calculate the template or the properties I'm going to set up. So I can now come into Map UI again, load those regions. That file's imported, and if I come back to the regions side now, I've now got two templates, called East and goes West, and this calculation is effectively the calculation that we've just created, and this is the aggregated data for all those entities that had a region called East, and conversely we've got the same for a region called West. So what we've done now, we've got in IoT, we've got our entities themselves, which have got the configuration East and West, and if we wanted to, we could change these characteristics and everything would be updated in the region side. So hopefully that gives you a very quick overview of how we can create another template to aggregate data to a higher level, and taking entity data and aggregating into in this term, region-based calculations. So in future calculations, we're going to add a few more calculations into that region and showing you how we can reinitialize that data so that we can change those start and stop times. Thanks for listening.